Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between QLWQ, ZN, and M. Abatrika. This was played in team event number 53 in the third round, under 2200 section. Got a couple high-rated players here, and they should give us an entertaining game. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's the Caracan defense. I believe Black's team is up 2-0 here, so a draw clinches the match. Okay, so you can understand the selection of the Caracan. Even if Black doesn't play, you can understand why it was chosen. It's a hard opening for White to beat, but it can be done. Okay, so we're in the main line. I play other stuff against this Caracan, but that's not important. You can look at my other videos and find it. If you don't find it, I'll surprise you with it one day, or somebody that has looked at my videos will. Now what's kind of fun here, humorous, is Queen E2. Okay. And White to play and do the best you can. Pause the video. Did you find it? Back. Here it is. Whoops. Mate. Old book trap. There was a story here in Southern California about 30 years ago. Somebody actually had a T-shirt that had that final position on it, and he was walking around the tournament hall and saw somebody fall into the exact mate. It was just comical. Anyway, people still fall for it. People will fall for it. Okay. Now, I don't know. I know some of these lines, like there's some tactics where you try to make a sack down here, but I'm probably not even thinking of the right ones. But anyway, Black has defenses against it all. Yeah, here, well, not quite. This is one where the bishop's on c4 and you threaten knight takes f7, followed by queen takes e6, but we're not in that. It's not important. Just some ideas to look at. And here we are at move 8, and both sides have 3 minor pieces out, and both sides have the queen rook and queen bishop sitting there on their original squares. I talk about this in so many videos. It's always curious to see how long those 2 pieces stay there. Okay, you know, if you leave them there, you're giving odds of a rook and a bishop. And I've seen them stay there well past move 20 in some of these games I've done. And I've been guilty of doing the same thing myself. It's just an observation I came up with a number of years ago, and I like to share it. Okay, so probably Black castles here. No, he kicks the knight. Okay, and this is fine. Just take off a piece or two and keep the game even. Okay, now it's Black's move. Now I expect he probably castles. No, plays queen c7. That's fine. Okay, so now White castles? Nope. I can't guess anything. I've already played through this game, but I'm just kind of having some fun. And c4 makes is a logical move. White's trying to just grab a little space here and keep a Black knight out of d5. If Black can occupy d5 in a Caracan with just about any piece, a queen or usually a queen or a knight, and can keep it there, he's doing fine, because that's just such a wonderful central square to hold. And Black often does hold it in a lot of Caracans, and in return White gets a knight in on e5, which is even a more ideal square. And because of that, with the rest of the position being equal, White is supposed to be given a very tiny advantage simply because of having the better knight. And certainly there are a lot of prospects available when you have a knight on e5 in a Caracan, and we're not going to get into that because it doesn't quite happen that way. Well, Black still hasn't castled, but at least he's thinking about developing his light squared bishop, and White does that, and this is good. The idea is to, I guess, to park the bishop on c3, and you've got a couple what they call the Harwitz bishops, where the bishops rake. They're side by side and rake across the king side. Okay, anyway, they're always fun to have. And Black's got his Harwitz bishops. There they are. And these long diagonals do come into play in this game. Let's decorate this while we're at it. Put up a matching set here. Here. Harwitz bishops. Okay. White is playing quickly, Black is playing quickly, so they're probably still in the book. Hey, finally White castles. Now I wonder if castling queenside is worth anything here. The idea being that white's pointed his bishops at the king side, and what if the black king isn't there? And yet the black bishops are pointed toward the king side, and the white king is there. What white's probably going to do is play knight e5, but then black has something he didn't do in the game, c5, which tries to undermine e5 and also opens up the diagonal of another bishop. So I don't know. Something for the players to let us know about. It's certainly worth consideration, but then again, black is playing for a draw, so maybe white can just shift his attention to the queen side and start an attack over there. That's a possibility. So anyway, black castles king side, and to me the game looks perfectly even. Okay, bishop c3, getting the Horowitz bishops. Okay, d8. Now here's the point where I think that black went to sleep, so to speak. I'd already talked about it's ideal for white to have a knight on e5 and black to like to get d5 in for his knight. Well, he's not going to get d5 for his knight. But what black does is he exchanges that knight, and I don't think he should have. What he logically, and it's a common move in the Caro-Kann, is just simply play c5 here. Okay? The point of c5 is that first there's several points to it. It frees the bishop on b7. It's now operating on the diagonal. Another thing too, it opens up the center a little bit, and both sides are ready to put rooks on the center file, the d file, and that can lead to potential exchanges and a very even endgame. So if black's playing for a draw, moves like c5 are just begging to be played. But what black did was he gave up the bishop pair, and I just don't see that being the best choice. Although white does have the two bishops, one of them right now at the moment it's not really helping. And now the black knight doesn't get to the square it wants to get to. It wants to get to d5, and that's not possible. So, you know, my line of thinking is that black shouldn't have so willingly parted with his bishop. Just play c5 and keep the game even, because now white's able to generate some threats. Here, you'll see what happens. Okay, f4. Well, he could have played, and I think he will play. He could play queen e4, and that just threatens to molest the black king and pick up a pawn, and it might force g6, which is a weakening move, and black wouldn't necessarily be playing that if he'd kept the bishop on the board. So it's kind of, eventually black's going to be forced to move some pawns around his king, and this is all owing to the fact that white has the bishop here. But f4 is fine. It's still got some motives to it, and we'll see what they are. And there he centralizes the rook, like we mentioned, and white gets the bishop off the file. He doesn't want to run into any simple tactics of discoveries once the queen runs. And now black gets c5 in, which is good. It does activate his bishop, but he could have done that with his knight on a better square and kept his bishop on the board. Okay, so anyway, queen g4, which has visions of mating on g7 in a little bit. White's going to transfer a rook to g3 here. Okay, so then now that knight that was on f6 and doing okay is now sitting on f8. So as a result of giving up the bishop pair, black has deactivated his knight. It's not as good a piece as it was. It's covering a couple key squares. It's covering h7, it's covering g6, but that's about all it's covering. And well, e6, but white's not really ready to go after that thing just yet, but he will be. But instead, it would have just been a much better active defender on f6, and white didn't have to have a pawn on e5. Okay, so white just continues with his plan. He's going to transfer stuff to the king side. This is logical. It helps secure this second rank, black second rank, and double on the d file. And this is good. Black keeps latent threats against g2 going. And now the mate threat. And there we have it. Black has had to weaken his king position just a little bit. and at the same time, all white's really done is shifted his pieces over to the king side. Now, white's exposed himself a little bit with f4. That it would be great for white if that pawn was on f3. That would just stop all black's counterplay cold. But white's going to be thrusting that pawn here in a moment, and so actually the pawn is very well placed. So queen h4, and I'm pretty convinced at this point white is probably winning. He could take on h6. He's got to watch a few tricks here. Black could be throwing. Black wants to deflect that rook on g3. If you do that, it can end up giving a checkmate of your own. So, for instance, queen takes h6. Black, I don't know. Black has some crazy moves like rook d3, and obviously white can't take with the rook, but he can take with the bishop, and then the other rook comes down and threatens to play rook takes rook followed by mate. And white could be just struggling for a little bit. I didn't analyze everything out. The players can show us, but I just noticed there's all kinds of tricks in here for black that he can try. And aside from that, the rook to d2 idea is interesting, giving up an exchange in a different manner. The point being, if white captures, when it's all said and done, white's bishop on c2 is under attack, as well as the g2 square. So black had some possibilities here, and starting from this move, he could try any number of those, but this is kind of an aggressive approach, and it just seems to do the trick. Almost anything, I think, probably wins for white from here on in. And, with just about 2-3 minutes left of video time, I try to keep all these to 15 minutes just to keep them equal and so forth and viewable. It's hard to try to show every possible variation, but there's a lot of them here. F6. What else could he do? Well, he could go back and try some of those ideas I said, rook d3 and rook d2. I'm assuming with the time black was spending, he probably did look at them, but he didn't try them. Maybe he should have tried them if because he's just going into a bad game here, and everything of white has is pointed at the king side, and something's going to crack here in a move or two. So, just allowing this pawn down on that square is just dangerous. Black really, really has to be careful, else he gets checkmated somewhere, way, shape, or form. And possibilities of this f7 check coming in and taking on f5. This g-pawn is pinned. I mean, white just got everything he wants here. So he chases the queen, and white gets it out of there. And I don't know. You were on that diagonal. Why get off? But maybe he had to. And since he's neutral, undoubled his rook, some of those tricks down to d2 don't work anymore. But then here, just a second pawn ahead, and the attack is still going on. g6 is under attack. The possibility of an f7 check is right there, and black really doesn't have a lot of moves. And now this subtle move, I mean, this is just threatening rook e7, and at some point, like if black tries rook e8, there's, I guess, if anything else, then there's this check, just opening up more lines. That's probably better. You got to be careful. Well, no, you don't. E1 is covered. I was thinking that was a mate. But black tries bishop a6. I guess at this point, I was trying to figure out why he did that. I guess the point is he's going to just give up the queen, and I guess he's visualizing rook e7 and then bishop takes c4, and when white takes the queen, black gets another defender here. Black just tries to survive. He's got g6 covered and a pawn majority on the queen side, but he's only got a rook for the queen, and he's down a 3-1 majority, so really black has no hope here. I guess that's what he was trying for, I don't know, but it's not really a good blockade. White'll grind this down. But anyway, white could play rook e7 right now if he wanted and get into what I showed, but white just played b3, and black decided that enough was enough. There was just no defense here, and he resigned. So it was a wonderful game by white. It was a good game by black. It's just he did defend this as well as he could once he got a bad game, but that taking on e5, I think, was the beginning of the end. Anyway, I thank everybody for their time, and I look forward to talking to you the next time I make a video. Take care.